Okay, this is tape 2 of the fuselage construction series. And what we're working on now, tape 1, we got up to this point right here, plus we did a little bit of theory and why we do these things the way we do and developing these different construction techniques. We're going to start working on the tank box area, and that's what Dave is doing right now, is cutting up the wood to make the tank box mount. Obviously we want to keep the tank centered in the plane. We're using a normal Taffender Smith type tank. We want to keep it right in the middle of the plane, and we want to be able to shim it up 1/8 of an inch and down 1/8 of an inch. Now what we're doing, we're gluing in some 1/4 inch supports so the tank is confined to the middle of the airplane. We don't want the tank wandering around in the air or going on an angle. We want it dead on the center of the airplane. We want to be able to shim it up and down 1/8 of an inch up, 1/8 of an inch down.
Okay.
And of course we're going to slide the tank in from the front. Alright, you could glue those in now permanently. Those are all tack glued in, you got plenty of clearance. Glue them in permanently, and make sure you get plenty of the thin glue down by the mounts so it's resting on the mounts. And then we'll make the tank floor next. And now what Dave did is he made a pattern for the tank floor. And we want to have the grain. We're trying to get all the grain on this to go corner to corner. We don't want the grain running the length of the body or side to side. We want corner to corner, like geodetic construction. So he made a pattern, and we're going to take 2 pieces of 16th balsa and laminate them with the grain going in opposite directions, so that one side of the floor the grain will be going left to right on a 45-degree angle, and the other side the opposite. It'll actually be balsa plywood when we're finished. And what this will do is allow a little extra room for the air to get out of the cowling, because the pipe comes back into the fuselage. Now if you're building a plane that you were not going to use a pipe in, a good choice here would be just use a piece of 1/8 inch light ply. But for this plane we want to have, because of the way we're going to be designing the nose, it's a little bit different than a normal pattern master nose. We're not going to have the V deflector in the same way. We're really only going to have half of a V deflector. We want to have as much strength in the tank floor as we possibly can get, as much rigidity. So when he joins the pieces up, we'll have the exact shape of the pattern that we made up. And it's always good just to make, yeah, that's fine. Just make it a little bit oversized. We'll block sand it down to the exact dimension so it's a press fit. All of these fits on formers and fuselage parts should be press fits. The glue should just be holding things in place. You shouldn't be filling in big gaps with glue and all that nonsense. Glue is just not the right medium for filling in gaps. You should make a new part If you make a former and it doesn't fit just right, make another former rather than try to fill it up with glue. Now when you make the other side, Dave, don't forget the grain's got to go opposite corner, so it's corner to corner, opposite directions. Playing with the heat. Now again, we just want to block sand with fine paper, block sand these out so we have a nice smooth fit. So when we glue them together, we don't have a big globs of glue in the middle of them. Nice smooth fit will help a whole lot. Again, anytime you can make the grain goes corner to corner in a structure, it's going to be a lot stronger than if you make it go side to side or top to bottom. What we're trying to do, the tank floor is an integral part of the body. We want to get as much strength as we can, and yet we still don't want to choke out the whole area where the cooling air is going to go. And we don't want to give the tank a flimsy mount either. So this looks like it's going to be a good alternative, is we're making up our own balsa plywood with grain corner to corner. And of course it's sea grain wood. 2 pieces of sea grain, 16. I feel pretty rigid. If it isn't rigid enough, we'll put a 3rd layer on before we even block sand it out.
Well, we can still bend it a little bit.
Now this is just ordinary triangular stock. You can buy this from whoever you buy balsa from. 1/4 inch triangle stock, and what we're going to do is beef this mount up, the joint on both sides of the tank floor, with some 1/4 inch triangle stock.
Glob of glue in there.
This triangle stock doesn't add a lot of weight, but boy, does it add a lot of rigidity. Especially up in the nose section. Good idea. And yeah, of course you can order this from Lone Star or whoever you get your balsa from. Real nice stuff. Now the next piece we're making up, we have to figure out, based on where the header is going to go back in the body, how we can connect these two corners. And Dave's making up another piece of the C-grain balsa plywood so we can do that. We've got the header here. Let's see if that's going to... Okay. Alright, you got to block that guy up, and then we'll get a trial fit on that. What we want to do is figure out with the header just how far back we can get that corner, and still leave you about 1/4 inch of clearance, because you'll need some clearance around the edge of the pipe too. My guess is you won't be able to go all the way, you'll only be able to go 3/4 of the way or whatever. Bevel those edges. He's getting a good bevel on the edges, and we will be able to connect corner to corner. So this will actually be half of a V deflector. If you look at tape 1, you'll see some of the fuselage is made with a normal V deflector. The reason this is done is only because we're running a tune pipe in this plane. This is going to one of Dave Midgley's custom-made carbon tune pipes. Now, one of the things you notice, every part has to be fit. We're looking for good wood joints, looking to keep a minimum amount of slop in the joints, everything nice and tight. If you go filling in joints with plastic wood and just junk, really, Poxolite or whatever, first off, the weight is always unbelievable, and the strength goes out the window. This way you get the strength and the lightweight. We have the grain going corner to corner in all our balsa wood. The only plywood in the nose of the plane is the 16th doublers. Everything else is balsa ply. We're expecting we're going to have the weight of this fuselage pretty competitive. We got a really beautiful top block to carve up later. We got a block from Lone Star that came from...
yeah, you ought to give Riley...
It came from heaven, so we'll give him a good plug for sending us the good wood.
Not only was it great, it came in about 4 days.
Yeah, well, I know it's hard to get for a long time. He hasn't been able to get good wood, but if you're out there looking at this video and you need some good wood, give Riley Wooten a call.
It's worth the extra 15% that he charges you to have him pick it out.
It's worth 100%, believe me. You cannot build this kind of structure with 12-pound RC wood. You must have 4 to 6 pound wood, and hopefully on a fuselage every single part C grain. Super important. How you got the fit on that, right?
Yeah.
All right, let me hold it while you glue it. Get it tacked in first. Yeah, that's a good fit. This will give you. All right, let me get me right away. Got it? You can glue it down along the deck first if you think that's easier. That's gonna be fine. You haven't cut into the triangle stock either, so it should be real strong. Okay, now that we have that, and now you can block sand this nice and even. Block sand that down and. What we're doing is just adding a piece of triangle stock to these corners. So the first piece we're going to put on here is going to be what Dave is making up now, is a piece of plywood to mount the tank vents in. He's working on that piece right now. The other object of doing it this way, the object is so we have a little more surface to add in to mount our landing gear plywood on, because of course this plane's going to have aluminum landing gear. You want to have some. You just don't want it mounted onto two pieces of 1/8 balsa. You'd like to have it on some triangle stock in the corner. This triangle stock is very, very good for doing this. You wind up, if you buy 10 pieces of it, you use it up and you wonder where it went, and the plane will come out a lot stronger, and you'll add almost no weight at all by doing this. And this will go back to the end of where we anticipate the landing gear mount to be, and whatever's left over we'll just trim off. You just wipe the joint with a paper towel. That usually kicks the hot stuff off. Now, if you can see on there, we have a piece of triangle stock on both sides. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. I'll have to get it on the macro lens later.
Back in here too.
Right. Right. Well, you want it to where the landing gear are going to end. Because you want as much of this to be hollow and open, so the air going through for the pipe. You'll have more room to move the pipe forward too. You can add some dimension to that. Yeah, as long as that triangle stock goes to the end of the end of where the landing gear, we're going to mount the plywood mounting plate. That'll beef it up real nice. And that whole piece of triangle stock probably only weighs 1 or 2 grams.
Dave Cook's a big proponent of using this stuff too.
Now we just realized something. Dave made up a piece of plywood for the tank vent mounts. These tank vents always mount underneath the plane where they're nice and clean and they don't leave a big stripe of fuel coming down the side of your plane. When you use light ply, you want to get the grain going side to side, not front to back. The piece he just made up front to back had almost no strength at all. you see what I mean? This wood, you can bend this way. In fact, it even breaks. But you can't break it this way. So you want the grain side to side. Side to side will give you the most strength. Otherwise, it's not even worth having in a plane. If you're not going to do grain corner to corner, you want it side to side. Okay, we have the new piece made up. The grain going in the proper direction, side to side. Now, the way we design the cowling, this is a typical cardinal cowling. The tank vents come out right underneath. You can take the cowling off without even disconnecting the tubing on the caps. So it's a nice way, nice, clean, neat way to do it. I don't like vents coming out the side or the top. The fuel usually leaves a big white streak down the body. This is the way all my planes, almost all of them, have the vents coming out the bottom. So you do need a piece of plywood to mount the vents in, and this is a nice, convenient way of doing it. At the same time, the plywood is acting like a little bit of a bulkhead up there with the triangle stock. It works out to be a part that does more than one job. It's a real good thing. And because you have the triangle stock on there, that definitely will be nice and rigid. It'll give you a nice back edge for the cowling too. Make sure it's right even with this up there. Oh yeah, that's good. And when you go in to do your tank vents, beautiful. You see how many parts that's connecting together, the way we're doing this? That's actually being a tank vent mount, almost a bulkhead former, almost a firewall. It's doing a lot of job, and it's leaving a nice big air channel so cool air can get out of that engine compartment. Okay, we're putting the motor in with all the bolts now because we're going to start working on the nose ring area. Next step on this guy is going to be the nose ring. So we'll cut up a nose ring from a 2 1/4 inch spinner, and we'll be ready to start carving that in. Now we just traced out the nose ring. Half of it goes on the fuselage, half of it goes on the cowl. We're going to cut this out. It's 1/8 inch light ply with the grain going sideways, side to side. Now you can see we have some of the curve already carved in here, some of the taper from having bent the fuse sides forward. We'll almost not have to take any motor mount material off at all. Also, now you can see just how much offset we have in there. Can you see how much water is here?
Bit, yeah.
All right, so we're in good shape. All right, now we want to get half of that nose ring put back in here. The easiest way to do this is go get some IBM cords.
Tack them to the back of the spinner plate.
No, just use them for shims to shove them in there. Shove some shims in there so it holds this in position. And we got to take some material off this one side here, Dave. 1 second. One side is already a little bit too tight. You don't even need the shim stock. Yeah, I want the shim stock here. Okay, I want you to take some of that material off over there.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's even, an even amount. Now the easiest way to do that from here. Let's just take the spinner off and block sand it out. Take the spinner off and we'll get the right clearance in there. We want the same clearance as we have to do to shim the other side.
Where's the wrench for this guy? Is it a... It's not a...
Now the idea is we're going to have the nose ring shimmed behind the spinner backplate, pressing up on the fuselage. And while it's in position, we'll just drop some thin hot stuff on it and it'll be in permanent position. It's a real nice way to get that job out of the way. Plus you get the right amount of offset. Now he's grinding this, so we have about, an IBM card is 4 thousandths, so we have about 3 thicknesses of IBM card, 10, 12 thousandths of clearance in the spinner back plate. And what that'll do, as all of these Tiger motors seem to be a little bit off when you tighten down the nut. Some the cone rides up on the shaft a little more, so just give us a little clearance. Nothing more annoying than having the back plate rub on the airplane after you're all finished. Also allows for the amount you're going to build up in paint on the back of the back plate. And this is just a clearance thing. We're just trying to get a clearance here. Now just put that half a nose ring in. Line it up with the back of the back plate, and as you're doing that, I'll shove in the IBM cards for clearance. Okay. Line it up so you have a... Let me see what you got on this side. This is not straight. Needs to go a little bit that way. Before we hit it, needs to come up. Stick it down a little bit. Up. Okay, I just want to show this on the camera that we have how we have this clearance here. The IBM cards are holding the nose ring in position. We haven't even glued it yet. 3 thicknesses IBM card. And now all we'll do is just a couple of drops of hot stuff to temporarily put it in position. There's a lot of ways to glue a nose ring on that are a pain in the neck. This way is certainly a reasonable way to do it. Won't make you crazy. In under a half an hour you can get the whole nose ring on and the clearance right. And all you do, you take these out. And take the spinner off here. Take the shims out. This one's got some glue on it. Won't really matter. Now we got the clearance around the nose ring. We got the shape we want. And we've got this bowed in. Now we're getting ready to put the top block onto the crutch. We got the tank mount in here. Dressing off one side of the block, we're going to obviously join it. I'm going to put a temporary former in here just so while I'm carving the block I'm not prone to squeeze it. See, it's still flimsy up here. So we're going to put what amounts to be a phony former in there. The only purpose of that former is while we're carving a block we don't crush the fuselage. Dave's dressing off the block now, so we'll get busy tack gluing it on and then start the carving operation.
job a lot. Turn it around. I got the holes already pushed in.
You're not going to do much about. You're going to be lucky if you just get one block at it, one cut. So get it right in the middle.
That's what
Mark it off.
So what are we gonna do for another piece?
Well, we'll just get another piece off one of your other blocks or one of the scrap things. I think there's a real nice piece of light scrap up there.
That's good.
In the back, that's where the rudder's going to be anyway. You're not even going to need it. Hey, you got pencil?
Let's go. Where'd those pens go? You gave me two.
Maybe up by the bar.
Got them.
By the way, that was Dave burping. That was not me. All right. Trace off the hole. And when you sew it, leave the line on. And what we'll do with this guy, we're going to obviously saw the edges off, tack glue it on. We have to join a little piece in the back since we don't have a 48-inch block. If you have a longer block, you don't need to put the joint in. It's choking from the sawdust. Now what Dave is doing now is plotting out the side view. So we're going to bandsaw off some of this extra wood. We have the canopy that we're going to use. They're already molded up. The canopy was made, for an 1.5-inch block. That's why this is a 2-inch block, and we're going to have to cut some of that extra wood off. You want to leave a little bit more than the height of the nose ring, say 1/4 inch more. What's the height of the nose ring? Add 1/4 inch so you can taper into it. It's not just a, like a drop and that's it.
3/4.
Right, if it's 3/4, make it 1 inch.
It's a 1/2 inch.
All right, if it's half, make it 3/4. And plot out where you want to have the canopy start. Now we can get all that off in one shot. Now how much are you going to allow for the canopy? Did you figure out the length of the canopy yet?
We can actually take it back even further.
Well, leave a little bit extra. Leave it a little.
I'll just leave it.
Leave even an extra 1/4 inch. And we can, Okay, now you want to take a 1/2 inch
off the top.
1/2 inch off the whole top length. And then we'll try to jigsaw this out. So it'll be a real thrill. If you have a bandsaw, now is the time to use it. Or if you have a friend that has one, go over and buy him a pizza pie. Because when you have to do this by hand or with a scroll saw, it's a real pain in the neck. And what we did, we took a jigsaw, ran a jigsaw through, and we have to go the last little bit with the X-Acto knife. And again, if you have a friend with a bandsaw, this is the time to be friends with them. How much can you get through there? Not enough?
Not. Doesn't go through.
Alright, let's see if we have a scroll saw somewhere here. That's not going to work. Don't even try it.
That's not working.
Now, if you have a coping saw, it may even be better than this. I don't have a coping saw here, though. It's better off stuff on the table. Alright, now trace the other part of it. Don't break it off. We'll break it off in one piece. Trace the other line. As you can see, the final decision was made. We're using the jigsaw. When you don't have the proper tools, my bandsaw is down at my machine shop. A good place for it, so we never can use it. Alright, just trace that out, plot that out. But you can do it with a jigsaw this way. It's a little bit of a butcher job, but it sure beats the heck out of carving all that. It'd take Dave all day to carve that. Maybe here till tomorrow morning carving all that wood away. What's that?
Get a square.
What we're doing is just mirror image plotting on the other side so we can run the bandsaw,
Okay.
Jigsaw. Okay. We're going up the line and then up, right?
Yep.
Okay. Watch your fingers. Alright. That's plenty close enough.
My God.
You can carve that away in a minute, not a problem. Now this is we're cutting off the fused sides. The extra wood that we're not going to use before we tack glue it onto the truck.
Got any hungrier blades than this?
Now since this was a 36-inch block, we need to put a little piece on the back to make it the full length of the fuse. Dave's cutting that piece up right now, and we'll join the two pieces together, tack glue it to the fuselage, and Dave can go carve until the cows come home. And that'll probably be the end of this today. We've got a full 15-hour day in here. Slave labor. Good. Now, a good trick when you're joining two blocks like this, a good trick is actually use, let's do it from this side, is use one block to sand in the side of the other block. So we want to join these two blocks. We put sandpaper around one, sand the second one, and do them on a flat glass table, and you'll probably get a pretty nice joint. And if it comes out convex, then just sand up the middle a little bit. Let's see what kind of joint you got there. Good joint? Or do you have two half moons that are facing each other?
No, I got one hole in the bottom.
And usually you have to do this pretty fast because the dust from all this sanding will kick that CA off in a minute. Let's see if we can glue it to the table too. That's always a thrill. Anybody blocks I've glued to the table already? Yeah, just give it time now. Don't even use kicker on it. You won't get a nice clean joint if you use the kicker. Just let it sit for a minute. So we're about ready to join this block to the fuse crutch. The carving operation can begin. Now, a nice little trick is when you just before you join the block, sand it with some fine sandpaper and leave the dust on. This way when you tack glue it to the fuselage, the dust will kick the CA off almost instantly. You won't be sitting trying to use kicker or anything. Lay it over and see. Now you might have to nudge it out for the blind nuts. You might have to put some little recesses in. Do we have recesses? Alright, mark them.
They're not getting that good though. What do I want to hit him with? A Dremel tool?
Yeah, let's do it with the Dremel tool. Little recesses for the blind nuts here. Now that's just little recessed things so the blind nuts can sit into the block when we glue it down. Just going to be tack glued on anyway. See what you got back by the tail there. It looks like you're not even with the tail. Is there a gap out there on the tail? Now, of course, you could reverse this thing if you had a bottom block. I don't ever use bottom blocks on a plane because they don't add any strength. And the cross-grain sheeting, when you sheet the bottom of the fuselage at 30 degrees from the center line, it adds tremendous strength. You also lose some of your side area when you have a rounded bottom block. You lose your effective side area, not the real side area. So a more efficient way of doing it, at least for me, is to have a flat bottom plane, cross grain sheeted with the top block only, especially now that blocks are almost impossible to get. This one really looks like a good one, but I'm sure
look good right now.
I'm sure the supply of them is limited.
The whole trick to getting them is you got to call and ask for Riley to pick them out himself. Deal only with him, and just pay the money for him to do it.
Okay, is that ready to tack on there?
We're off on the back a little bit.
Okay, let's just tack it on to start with. You got the back even? Where's the thing? Just the thing?
That's the thing.
Okay, get the back even. Turn it on its side for now. Just one dot about every 3 inches is plenty. How's the back? Good?
Yep.
Squeeze this as we go. Just tack it, you know, a couple of tacks all around for now. Before we do a, you know, where it's too solid on there. Hey, give me that for 1 second. Now, a typical problem that everybody seems to have is if you don't glue it to the nose ring, what happens is there's a little gap in here. And when you go to put the final thing down, you push it down and then you're below the spinner line. Make sure you get some of the glue holding it to the nose ring. That's a real important thing. All right, flip it over. Let's do the other side. All right, now let's squeeze it as we go. Wait, let me get this. Get a little more up on the nose here. A couple more drops in between my 2 hands. Get a drop in there. Get one right by my pinky down. Alright, and just go right down. Looks like you got the rest of it. It's pretty good.
Let it just come normal.
Okay, that looks pretty good. Looks like we're in good shape. Alright, first step, let's get a brand new knife. Get a brand new blade off the wall. And get ready to bury yourself in carving chips. Okay, the block is on. What a sloppy job that jigsaw did. At least it did it. Alright. Now what we'll do is, Dave will carve this down to roughly the shape that he wants. And then we'll take a piece of thin 1/8 inch tape and go front to back to establish a center line. And then carve up to the tape. Then we'll pull the tape off and block sand it all in. It's not as complicated as it sounds to get both sides the same, but you have to have a center line. And I like to do it with tape. That's the easiest way. First thing he's going to have to do is rough this out though and get the corners knocked down so it's roughly the shape that he wants to have. Now one of the reasons we're doing this outside is to avoid making as much of the mess as we can in the shop. Start with the corners. Try to get the basic shape. When you get the basic shape, get a center line out of 1/8 inch tape. Then of course around the canopy is usually the most critical thing to get. And back where the fuselage tapers up in the back. It gets to be a lot of work. Now typically it takes me 4 to 6 hours maybe to do a block to get it exactly the way I want. I've spent as much as 10 hours. In fact, I've spent a whole day hollowing the last few grains out of a block. A typical weight on a block like this when you're finished should be, I'd say a mediocre one would be an ounce. A good one would be 3/4 of an ounce. Certainly no more than an ounce. And that would include the rudder too. And that usually takes quite a bit of time to do, to get it hollow. Of course, if you start with a very hard block, you're never going to get that weight. You've got to start with a 4-pound block to get that weight. And if you can do some of the carving outside, of course, it's real nice. You won't mess up the house as much. You got it almost ready to put the 1/8" tape on, huh?
Pretty soon.
Okay, we got the 1/8" tape for the center line on here. Hold that from the front, Dave, so I can look right down it. And of course, it's just rough carved. We got a piece of tape for the center line. Now he's going to work with sanding blocks, get the rest of it off, and even it out. We're not concerned with the canopy because we're going to put a molded canopy on here. And actually, we've been working out here so long, it's going to be dark in another half an hour. Now we're going to work from both sides into the tape. And try not to take too much of the fuselage side away at the same time. You can see the motion that he's using, like a circular motion. Always sand with a block. We're starting here with like 180 grit and going down to 220. The idea is not to make the body side tape thin either, to carve it in. Carve right up to the tape, and then the absolute last step is just blend in that little flat spot where the tape is. Right, it finally got dark outside, so Dave came back down into the shop. He's trying to get the nose as true as we can under these conditions. It's the next day, and Dave's been working on this block for about another 2 hours. Just want to check his progress. Using a sanding block and an 1/8" tape. 1/8" tape for the center line. Looks like he's making a lot of progress on this. Again, this kind of work just takes time. You have to be patient. Get the shapes that you want for the canopy. Keep that center line on as long as possible. A tape center line is a good idea. Started out with like 120 grit and down to about 400 on the last couple passes. And before we actually start laying up and carving the cowling, we want to have the top block at least have the rough shape that we're going to have in this fuselage. Keep sighting down it. Most of the stuff you can do with your hand. You can do it by feeling it. You just feel a contour. If you keep running your hand back and forth on it, you'll build up a little technique that you can pick up the bad spots in a hurry. Okay, we got most of the sanding done on the top block, pulled off the tape, radiused everything off. Dave's going to make up the first piece of the mount that's going to hold the cowling on. And we're going to make a piece that actually will be part of the cowling and drill through both of them at the same time to get our blind nuts for the cowling mount. Kind of a nice, neat, easy way to do this. This whole cowl design is kind of an easy one to do. If you're looking to save some time and energy, this is one you can probably knock out in a couple of hours. And you want that to fit nice and tight on the inside. You know, let it go from one side to the other, grain side to side. This is light ply, and we want to have the grain going from one side of the fuse to the other, not front to back. You can actually mark it while it's right in place and just run over to the jigsaw and saw it up.
Get a pen.
Nothing but the best quality stuff here at Pro Stunt Products. Used pens. Mark it right on the inside. Now, by drilling through both pieces at once to set the blind nuts in, one of the things it lets you do is you get the alignment right off the bat. Now you can see we have this in a little mount. This is a piece of foam rubber. You can buy some foam rubber and just make a box out of it like this. This was Jeff Stifel's little idea. I think a computer came in here. Just notch it out for the body, and while you're working on your fuse, it's real handy to have it like this. You don't ging it all up and beat it up.
Before Jeff quit the hobby, and
oh yeah, we can't fail to mention he's a quitter. This was probably his only good idea of his whole life, in fact. His meaningless, purposeless life. This was it.
I don't think that'll be too bad.
Now putting a little piece of triangle stock on both sides of this. This way I'll give it a little more of a grip when I actually put it in the fuse.
It's as straight as it's going to need to be. Nothing more.
Now what we did, we took the template for the old Cardinal cowling. We measured it up on a plane, and we don't want to have the same type of cowling, but we want to have the engine, trace the engine hole out in there. The engine hole is going to be the same. Alright, you want to add an 1/8 inch to the back, because we know this is a little bit more of a cutout. Add an 1/8 inch to the back. Now if we were making a regular Cardinal right off the plans, we'd use that as the template. But Dave's going to have a little bit different cowl opening shape, and his cutout is about 1/8 of an inch longer, and the fuse is a little bit wider, so this is what we're just making the adjustments to it for. And he's going to have a blunt like a chin on it instead of a point like this. So we're just using this as the template and sketching in our own shape. Again, this is one of the reasons to always have a good set of plans. It's accurate. Not these hand sketch things that you can't even fit parts together from. Makes building a whole lot easier. And if you have to, Dave, leave it a little bit longer than it should be and just block sand it in. Now this will actually be the core part of the cowling. It holds the cowling bolts on. and helps us set up the shape, the final shape of the cowling. And again, once you have a template for this, making up the next piece of it is a piece of cake.
There we go. Okay.
Okay, you get that into position. You can put a parallel line on there if you want. Here's the tri-square. Now what we're going to do is put two pilot holes in here. We're going to drill through the cowl support and the cowl mount at the same time, so the holes will line up perfectly. Then we'll take the ply support off, put the blind nuts, open up the holes a little bit, put the blind nuts in, screw the cowl support down, and then make the top of the cowl, and then just machine up a block for here. Glue the nose ring on and sand out the cowl.
Is that all set?
All set to go.
You gonna hold all this?
Yeah, let me hold it. Hold on a second. Okay. That's a variable speed. You can just go real slow. And by drilling two at the same time, you notice it's going to line up. You also want to mark which side of this is the top so you don't inadvertently flip it over and then might be a little bit different.
Is that the girl's phone?
That's the phone upstairs. Yeah, just mark that this is the top for now.
Okay.
Okay, we got to open up these holes and put the blind nuts in. Squeeze them in with pliers. Now we want to leave the holes in the cowl undersized so that the bolts fit tight, and these exactly the size for the blind nuts.
That's the right size, isn't it?
Yep, perfect. Just pinch them in. Use the pliers and pinch them in, and you're all set. Now, another good idea right now is to glue two washers to the cowl support so the bolts aren't running right into the plywood. You know, they'll be squashing into a washer. We have some oversized washers over there. And that seats the nut real nice. Flip the fuse over and put a drop of hot stuff so it doesn't fall out. Okay. And what this will do is keep the light ply from getting squashed after 12 or 15 years of flying and 12 million flights. Now what you want to do, take that piece and run the bolts in
Tighten
to
them up.
seat the nuts. And when you seat the nuts for the final time, put a little bit of thick hot stuff on them. Bolt that piece right in place.
8440. 40s in them.
Now that should be all nice seated, aligned. Nothing more embarrassing than flying around having your cowling come off and hit one of the judges. And we've seen it happen to.
Yeah, that seats are nice.
Okay, yeah. Now just put the thick hot stuff, flip it over, a couple of drops of the thick, and the nuts are seated. And the idea, if you watch this step by step by step by step, you can improvise and change shapes and sizes and things. But this is just one really good, bulletproof, proven way to make a nose section. That if you follow this, whatever you want to call this plan of action, you'll probably come out with a plane that you'll be real happy with, and you'll get a lot of years of service. And if you improvise from this, hey, even better. Come up with some other cute little twists on this. I'm sure this isn't the final word in construction. But you don't want to have a big giant cowling, boy. The worst thing on a whole plane is to have a big giant cowling. It adds no strength to the nose. Doesn't absorb any vibration. A million reasons not to have a big cowling. This is a good time you could be using some scrap if you have it. We don't have it. We have to eat up a good piece of 3/8 here. Now what Dave did is he pressed in the piece of wood, got the two impressions from the nuts sticking up. That gives you the alignment for the holes in the top piece of wood. If you just put that piece right on, press it down, the two Allen head screws are sticking up. You get your alignment perfect on the first shot. And we'll line those holes with a little piece of aluminum tubing or an arrow shaft. An arrow shaft's even better. Even if you slip with the Allen wrench, you don't chew up all that nice finish. Adds a nice little final touch. All my planes have, a nice little edge around the holes for the Allen bolts. Nice little detail touches. Now the bolt's coming up right in the middle, Dave?
Perfect.
Okay. All you got to do now, put some thick CA on that plywood and shove it down, and when you take it off, you can take it over to the saw and cut it off in one piece. And turn it over and cut it off. Make sure the washers aren't holding it up off of the, if they are, take the Dremel tool and put a little relief in them. You're just relieving this a little bit to the washer. And you can see from the impression, you press it down exactly where the impression is. If this all sounds complicated, it really isn't. When you put an assembly like this together, it really goes step by step by step by step. It's all laid out ahead for you. There's really no way you can make a mistake. There's no way you cannot have a problem, really. Really pretty self-explanatory, most of these steps. Let me see that piece of wood, Dave. Okay, so you can see the little reliefs for the washers. One thing I hope is from this video you can get kind of a step-by-step for a reasonable way to build an airplane. A lot of people have, one of the problems they have is when they look at a kit or they look at a building from plans or whatever, they just can't figure out what the logical steps are to doing it. I hope this video is going to help a lot of those people. And if you enjoyed the video, hey, pass it on to your friends. Get them to come over for a pizza. You know, make a group thing out of this. Try to help other people figure out what they can do to upgrade their building. This stuff is no fun unless you have a house full of friends working with you. If you work all by yourself, it really isn't that much fun. And what we'll do is take this piece off, take the bolts out, turn the piece over, walk over to the Dremel saw, and just saw the piece out. It'll already have the perfect shape. That plywood will make a very rigid, functional cowling. There's no way you could carve this cowling out of one block and have it anywhere near as rigid or as functional as this. You would always have some kind of a downside if you did it with a block. This way you can actually use up more scrap too. There we go.
I'm going to have to open that up some more.
Okay, mark it if it's a little bit of... Well, first you really should bolt the engine in.
You can't because it's hitting the top block.
Okay. Well, what you have to do then is, you know, bolt the engine in.
We'll be able to do that. Yeah, it's right on, but it's very, very tight.
Well, obviously you want to wrap... A good way to do this is take masking tape and put 15 layers of rounds of masking tape around the engine. Then 15 layers will give you exactly the right clearance so that you won't have the paint burning off the cowling or the heat from the engine distorting the cowling or whatever. 15 layers of masking tape is a good starting point.
That's a good trick.
Well, what this does, this will give you the proper clearance. And there's nothing really more frustrating than you run the engine the first time in a plane and a big bubble appears in the paint on the side of the cowling because you don't have enough clearance for cool air. Now the reason we had to do that is we want to, bless you, we want to bolt the engine in permanently here. So we can get a nice tight fit on that cowling top. You got a nice fit there, or you need more?
Oh, no, now when it's seated, it's, we gotta take some off the back from here.
And now you can mark where you're a little bit too close.
To here.
And just Dremel it right off, right? Dremel it right off.
The front's fine.
See how you get a nice precision fit this way instead of a big sloppy thing with a 1/4 of an inch gap around the motor? Okay, we're taking the motor out. Going to bolt the piece back in now. We got the right clearance around the cylinder fins. Bolt that piece back, and we're going to have to cut up a block, this big triangle shaped block for the front. So we'll go look in our scrap pile, see if we have a nice light block. We can hopefully get 1 or 2 that we can glue together and fill that in.
Good on that side.
Now what you're trying to get here obviously is a nice fit, but you also want the grain running parallel to the cowl cutout. I don't know if you can see that we have the grain running toward the nose ring. Gives it a lot of extra strength and makes it a lot easier to carve. And you can just keep fiddling until you get the angle in. Now you can just mark, obviously mark both sides. Lop some of that off before you even glue it. Trace the side. And leave plenty up there so we can blend it right in. Don't get too cute when you carve that in. And then the last thing, of course, we'll try to get the other half of the nose ring lined up real nice. You don't have to worry about that at this point in time. That's not important. Just get off a lot of the extra wood with the big 26 blade. Yeah, just don't get it back by the back plywood mount or you'll glue the thing together.
I took the tube out the last time. Putting the tube back.
Most of that's going to get ground away, so you're only going to wind up with a shell there, so you don't have to go too crazy on it. That's it, just get a nice tight fit while it kicks off. And while it's in place, you can lop a lot of that extra wood off. And when you start carving that to a point in the middle, do the same thing with the tape. Run a piece of tape down so that and leave the tape to the last thing. Kick it off. Now, a good point I want to make is Dave and I are working in really confined areas here at what used to be about 5 times bigger amount of space, and we're constantly cleaning as we go. My suggestion is, if you have a small shop, clean up as you go. Don't make a tremendous mess and then at the end of the day clean it up. It just seems like it's a lot easier to get things done when you don't have the constraint of tripping over things and all kinds of things on the floor. We've been trying to keep the place clean as we do this project. Number one, so the video looks a little easier to understand. You can see just how some of these things take shape. Having a nice clean shop, Dave just has a much bigger shop than I do, but for practical purposes, we're doing this down the cellar. And if you have a big shop, you can be a little sloppier. We're in a really confined area here. And the point is, even if you have a confined area, and if you're building in a small room or a kitchen or whatever, a bedroom, you still can turn out great work. You don't need a whole lot of space. You don't need a complete machine shop or anything. What you do need is patience, and you do need some simple basic tools: knives, sandpaper,
Bandsaw.
You don't need a bandsaw. We've just proved that. Took us about 2.5 hours to cut this block up with a... What the hell did we use anyway?
Hacksaw.
A hacksaw. Because my bandsaw is down at my machine shop, so that made it so convenient.
A man.
So convenient.
Not having it here is just as good as not having it.
You got it. You got it.
Woody would be proud of me.
What we're trying to do is get the block to be parallel to the nose ring so we can get the shape and then start carving in the point in the front. Okay, we have the piece of the nose ring, the other half. Want to get it in some kind of alignment here. Just this way. Okay, yeah, trace it out.
Don't move your hand.
Okay.
We're already behind it.
So you already went too far on one spot. Okay. If you want to, you could just tack glue this on here to help you not slip with the sandpaper and take too much off. Put 2 drops of hot stuff on there, just to help you in. Then we'll break it off and recess 1/8 of an inch off of there. Okay, now you want to connect the dots here. First get a straight line here when you want to get that curve in. block sand in a line. Then we'll put the tape down the middle and then cut it in. What we're doing is putting a piece of tape right down the nose so he can carve into the tape. Tape center line, same as we did on the top block, same idea. You can carve right into the tape. Now because we still have the nose ring mounted there, we'll probably wind up that when we're all finished and take the tape off, we're going to want to cut some of that wood away. It'll be sticking out a little bit too far, but it's better. This way you don't undercut it right off the bat. Go right onto the top block, Dave. You need to mark that with a pencil so if it moves you can see it. That'll give you a nice reference line to do your carving into, because this is a complex shape. When you do a simple cowl shape, some of the simple cowls we just make a lump or whatever you want to call it with a hole in it. Well, this is more like a speed job where you need to there's a little complexity in the carving and laying out exactly how you want to do it. And don't be afraid to do this. An average guy can do this. This is not some, some high-tech thing. You just need to have some patience and do it step by step by step by step, like a Bob Ross painting. Do it step by step and it'll be easy.
The happy cowl.
The happy cowl, right. Now do it just like you did the canopy. Start and just work your way toward the tape. If you go too far, you got to fill it in with DAP. Let's see if we can do the whole job without any DAP. So far there's no DAP on this aeroplane. I've seen some planes that there's more DAP than balsa wood. Again, how nice and handy it is to have that big chunk of foam rubber. And of course you can do it with just a big pillow of foam rubber. You go down to a store that sells foam, or best way to do it, the windy way, look for one of your neighbors to be throwing out a couch. I used to drive around on garbage day, wait for somebody to throw a couch out, run over and steal the cushions. In fact, I still have 2 of them in the van. Now this isn't to say that I'm cheap, thrifty. Anyway, that's a great way to do it. And this thing that Jeff came up with is even better. Another way you can do it is wait till your neighbors go on vacation and just steal the pillows off of their couch.
Steal the couch?
Yeah, steal. Nah, you don't need the couch. We don't have any room in here for a couch anyway. Nobody sits down in this shop. This is a stand-up, tough guy shop.
The Shop of Horrors.
Little Shop of Horrors. Greenaway's favorite movie.
Seymour.
Yeah, you can see the shape of this wood. It's got a curve. We're going to use this for doing some of the sanding. One of the things you need on that is the shape to get in and get the proper shape if you want to have a cardinal type cowling. Take an old block of wood, put a half moon shape in it. This is 3/4 inch wood. It'll be very handy for putting that shape in the cowling. Dave, if you take a piece of sandpaper on this. Okay, what this allows you to do, you can get that shape in there. You know, use this for your sanding block. with this edge here. You have that big piece of 320? Or if you need rougher, take a piece of the rougher stuff. It'll allow you to get into that curve a lot better. And no matter what shape your cowling is, it's handy to have these little tools available. See how that curve works its way right in there? Allows you to get that curve real nice. What's actually a good idea is when it's not building season and you have a spare day, a rainy day, or a day your wife's arguing with you or whatever, take some scrap wood, quarter, half, 3/8, and make a whole set of blocks like this so that you have each different radii. You have some that have a real nice sharp curve and some that are like this one, this 3/4 inch one, kind of fat. We're starting to get that cardinal shape up there. That looks nice.
You get a double-edged razor blade or something?
What we're going to do, we're going to pull that nose ring off, recess back into the balsa 1/8 of an inch, and then put it back on. And then pull the cowl off and get the carbide bit in the Dremel and hollow it out. Watch you don't cut yourself. Even if you break it, we'll make another one. Don't worry about it. Now we're going to take the cowl off and just block sand that nose until we get the two half nose rings lined up. So you got the plywood nose ring sanded in there nice now, block sanded in.
Looks great.
One of the sexiest shapes in all of model aviation.
My belly.
I can't even say that. My gut and your cowling. My cowling and your gut. I can't even say this with a straight face.
Go ahead.
Okay, want to get some center lines inside so we can work off of these lines, hollowing this out. So we can get in here now with a big gouge, get some of this material out, do a lot of it with the Dremel tool. I guess 90% of it we'll do with a gouge on this one. The grain is going exactly parallel here. Now you can see Dave's using a round a round gouge. And you see, by having the grain parallel to that line, how nice the material comes out. If you had the grain like it is in a nobler cowling, you would go absolutely crazy trying to hollow it out. This will hollow out just like skinning a banana. And the trick here is leave at least a 1/4 inch wall thickness, so that when you go to put your absolute final shaping, and of course the final thing is when a wing is in a body and you're all set to do your final sanding before putting the first coat of dope on, put the motor in the plane, put the prop and spinner on, and get all the little corners filled with DAP and the final alignment sanded in, which you really can't do now. Now you can see as you carve that piece down what happens. The piece you cut out for the motor is going to come right in the right position, just like magic. Now if you saw this, you'd think maybe somebody knew what the hell they were doing in this house, but I don't want to give anybody the benefit of the doubt here. Anyway, this is a good way to do it. A real painless way of getting your cowling. And you'll come right down to the point where you have the motor hole cut in, and it'll just be a question of putting in the hole for the needle valve and the exhaust and the air intake. What's probably funny, if you take this video and play it backwards, you can watch Dave make a block of wood from a cowling here. You can see candling it how thin it is here. We already went through once. Just if you go through like that, just put a couple drops of hot stuff on, let it go. Candle it, look up to a light bulb and see how thin you're getting it. This is pretty thin already. And we'll finish it up with the Dremel tool. Now when you get the final shape, in this case Dave is putting in the air intake hole, you really don't want to do that with a Dremel tool. A good thing is a piece of brass tubing or a dowel. In this case we have some sandpaper wrapped around a piece of brass tubing, and it gets a nice smooth edge on everything. Nice handy sanding tool for doing this kind of an intake hole. Well, we're sneaking up on having his body finished. You really only have to finish this, and if you're going to have a ship that's going to have fuse mounted gear, you're going to want to gear a platform under the leading edge of the wing. Obviously you'll want to sheet the body if it's this kind of a body with the grain 30 degrees to the center line. You don't want to sheet it one piece front to back. At this point in time you could put the rudder on, cut the various holes for the needle valve and the whatever other holes you're going to need as far as pipes, mufflers, glow plugs. However you decide you're going to do that, it's usually an aesthetic thing. And I hope that while you watch this video you picked up some of the little, I guess tricks is the right word, but they're tips more than anything else. And the biggest thing I want to do is encourage you to pass this information on to other people. Because what the hell good is it if you die? You take this to the grave with you. You can't sell it, you can't even give it away. And in the past it's been hard to get this kind of information because we didn't have video cameras. The constraints that magazines have to work under and newsletters and things have not been able to get this amount of information and this I guess economical, convenient way to do it. So take advantage of what's available. There's other videos available for wings, finishing, sheeting. Videos available from Scott Smith that'd probably be worth watching. If you want to pick up on some of these advanced techniques, take advantage of them. Don't wait for other people to come to you. You go to them, get the information you need. The videos are definitely one excellent way to do that. And this is one of the real handy tools to use, is a piece of styrofoam with one of the sticky back sandpaper grits on it. Real handy for cleaning out the inside of the cowling here.
I figured people would get the hint.
And what I'm doing now is I'm getting CA around all the edges here. The edges of the hole, the edges of the nose ring, the spots where we have this very thin where it's candled through. The back edge. I've just put a thin coat of hot stuff on there. And then of course just dress it off with a block.
Oh my God, look at that. That's perfect.
Dave's figuring out the shape of the rudder that he's going to use. May even get the rudder on before this video ends. Now one of the things we did, put in a little air ducting here over the platform. And in the front, I don't know if you can see this on a... Also, where we have, of course we matched that up so that from the front you can see the air duct hole runs right in. Also a piece of aluminum tubing. Aluminum is better than copper. We're going to line these holes with two little pieces of tubing. So I'll cut 2 pieces of tubing roughly 1/4 of an inch long with the Dremel tool and just hot stuff them in there and block sand them flat. It'll keep these little areas from getting chewed up with the Allen wrench every time you slip or you're at the field. Keep the plane looking new a lot longer. You just have these little pieces, you can shove them in there, take a Dremel tool and make them nice and flat and block sand them in. It's all these little final detail touches that just make a plane special instead of a roll of toilet paper that you build a new one every year. And once you build one really nice, you might not ever want to build another one. Some of my planes that are 4, 5, 6 years old, like good friends, they last a long time. What you can do is just take a countersink the holes, or I'll break the edge. Always do that by the tip weight box too. Nice little detail touch.